The local food movement is gaining steam. Everywhere you look, people are talking about buying local and eating healthy. Many people are even starting to grow their own food. I started down this path of growing my own food some years back. It didn't take me long to realize that growing your own food is not as easy as one would think. Not only is it hard work, but there is also a ton of skill necessary to grow food successfully. I started looking online for help in my new pursuit of growing healthy food, and it wasn't long before I discovered permaculture. Perma what, you say? That is a common response when I say the word permaculture. Perma what? Permaculture is a design system for ecological and sustainable living, integrating plants, animals, buildings, people, and communities. The food forest is the foundation of a permaculture system. There are 7 layers to a food forest. The canopy layer, which would be the large fruit and nut trees such as chestnut and walnut. The sub-canopy layer, which would be smaller fruit trees such as apple, pear, or cherry. The third layer would be the shrub layer. This would be plants like blueberries, elderberries, and currants. The fourth layer would be the herbaceous layer or the herb layer. This would be plants like rosemary, basil, and thyme. The next layer would be the root layer. This would be carrots, Jerusalem artichoke, and potatoes. The next layer would be the ground cover layer. This would be like strawberries, rhubarb, and raspberries. And the last layer would be the vining layer. This would be plants such as grapes, kiwi, and hops. The swale is one of the permaculturist toolbox. Is The swale is one of the tools in the permaculturist toolbox that is used to harvest rainwater. The swale is a ditch carved into the side of a hill, running perfectly on contour. The rainwater runs down the hill and hits the swale. Since the swale is perfectly level or on contour, the water is stopped. It does not run down the hill. Water is forced to sit in the swale until it seeps into the landscape, watering the food forest below. The rainwater has been harvested.
A swale is a water harvesting ditch on contour with a soft contour mound on the lower side. It interrupts the water flow as it comes across the landscape and stops it on contour perfectly level, and the soft mound on the lower side soaks the water into the landscape and it plumes it through the landscape as a sponge very, very slowly. This is the essence of creating swales that harvest water in the most passive way and hold the water up for as long as possible, as high as possible, and create the most potential for productivity. The water that plumes down the hill from swale soakage continues to move at right angle to contour very slowly through the landscape. As you set more and more of these systems up, it's inevitable that eventually some of this water hits impervious layers that are almost horizontal, and where they meet the surface of the landscape profile, accumulated water starts to spring out in the middle to lower slopes. This is a way we actually recreate or invent completely new spring lines in the landscape, and that's another set of advantage that we can put swales to use for all sorts of extra water flows and productivity.
In between the swaled food forest lines, you can put up fencing and run livestock. This is called silvopasture. This is an amazing system as when it rains, the water captures all the nutrients in the livestock manure. The nutrient-rich water runs downhill until it is stopped by the swales. The food forest has been watered and fertilized without lifting a finger. It's all about the design. You can work the soil in between the swaled food forest lines and then plant crops such as alfalfa. In this picture, they are baling hay to feed the livestock. You can also plant annual vegetables in between the swaled food forest lines. This is called alley cropping. This picture shows how beautiful a well-designed food forest can look. This image shows a community food forest. It functions like a community garden, but designed as a food forest instead. This image shows the potential of designing food forests in our public spaces. This would be an option for our public parks. It would be an educational site. All these areas would be posted with signage explaining what is going on. Plants would all be labeled and have explanations how to grow and how to process for consumption. The food would be free for the taking by the people visiting the Food Forest Park. In this particular design, there would be approximately 30 fruit trees and some 60 fruiting shrubs, along with all the strawberries, rhubarb, grapes, and everything that I talked about earlier in the food forest system. This system, once established, could feed a lot of people, and the people themselves would do all the labor of harvesting, which is the most labor intensive part of a food forest. There would be some maintenance necessary, but no more than a normal public park.